Until now, HRZ have been known for their conversion of vans to campers on a Sprinter platform. That's not the case for the Safari that we are testing here. There was a good reason for this. They wanted to offer more comfort in spite of being 3.5 tons, and a cabin like this is a few decisive kilograms lighter.
Quadratic, practical. But is it also good? That's what will be revealed in our test. But before we venture into the gravel pit with the cube, let's take a closer look at the debut work carried out by the vehicle manufacturer from Baden-Württemberg, from the outside and from the inside. Explorer editor Martin Kremplin has already spent one night in the Sprinter.
With a length of 5.95 meters, the vehicle is comparable to a normal Sprinter van. It is 2.09 meters wide, and the decisive plus point is that I can sleep sideways. A nice detail is this large storage flap. Here you can see the bunk beds, and I can fold it up and there's space to store 1 or 2 bicycles underneath. At the rear, the cabin is mounted to the vehicle on cushioned suspension. Here are 4 rubber elements. It's bolted in at the front. The tires are 245 75 16-inch, an MT version. That means it's really quite loud when you are driving. The cabin here at the front has been fitted really flush with the cab. There's currently no integrated driver's cab. That means I can't look through the front, as the shower cubicle is in the way. Only a 163 HP engine has been installed to make sure that the weight of 3.5 tons works out. A V6 with 190 HP is available, but would have put the weight balance out.
Weight is really the big issue for camper vans up to 3.5 tonnes. We'll look at how much the HRZ Safari really weighs later. But first, there's one unpleasant detail that stands out.
Aluminium profiles have been installed around the doors. This is of course very robust, but also has the disadvantage that it's a real thermal bridge. You can see it here in the morning. It really looks like it's been drawn with a ruler. Aluminium has been used here at the bottom and here, so that here there's water condensation. Real droplets have formed, while here the fiberglass is dry.
After cooler nights, the traveller really has to mop up with a cloth. And now we go inside the van made of fiberglass composite plates.
Coming into the cabin, you notice straight away that there is an incredible amount of room. There's a space to walk here of almost 90 centimeters and a headroom of 2.14 meters. This amount of space is actually unusual for a Sprinter. The generous width means that I can sleep sideways. This feeling of space was achieved on the one hand by space-saving measures, such as this kitchenette for example. It is comparatively small. The seating area is also quite small. It's sufficient for 2 people. But I need the internal height for example so that I can sit relatively comfortably on the bunk bed. I have around 75 centimeters of headroom when I'm sitting here at the bottom, and above there's around 65 centimeters from the top of the mattress. These 2 single beds correspond to the seating area, which also has space for 2 people. There's not really any space for guests. It really is a 2-person vehicle.
By the way, if you were wondering why you sit here so low and why a smaller person would only be able to see the window fittings, well, the base in which the water tank and heating are to be installed later on has not yet been installed in our test vehicle.
The bathroom cubicle is installed in the front section of the vehicle. It doesn't extend the entire width. The fridge and the wardrobe have been installed here on the passenger side. In the bathroom I have a large shower base in the middle. There's no shower curtain, because there's space for the toilet on the driver's side, either a composting toilet or a normal cassette toilet. It's a negative when it comes to storage here. The only thing to be found in the drawer here is the pull-out sink. And right at the front you can get into the driver's cab through a really large entry.
Overall, the interior of the Safari has a rather pared-back appearance and has been clearly designed for practical use. What else is striking is that everything that might be superfluous has been omitted in order to save weight.
This space here is really a bit of a waste. They really could have installed a few shelves here for bits and pieces. It's simply an empty space. Here at the side is also a shelf that could have been made useful with a bit of railing. There's certainly a bit of potential to optimize some of the details.
A little too much storage space has been saved in the Safari. The two Overlanders really do have to limit themselves quite a lot when it comes to storing their belongings. The only place where there's nothing to complain about in this respect is in the kitchenette.
The kitchenette has been kept quite compact, but nevertheless does offer a lot of storage space, which has also been distributed well with a good mix of drawers and cupboards. You cook on 2 gas burners, and there's also a very large sink here. What is lacking somewhat is bench space for working. On the first glance, there's just this small space, but here is a practical extension on the outer side, and you can actually work quite well here.
There's separate beds for sleeping in the HRZ. It's possible that the owners have known each other for quite some time.
Naturally, you need a ladder to get up to the top bunk. It's simply stored here on top of the mattress or underneath it. That's a particularly good storage place for it. By the way, there are the classic wooden slats under the mattress, very comfortable to sleep on. The ladder is simply hooked in here, standard campervan product, and I can then climb up into the top level. This is actually quite comfortable for an adult, but those who are a bit larger will have to fit themselves in a bit. There's less headspace here at the top. There's 10 centimeters more room at the bottom. The height is just enough to prop yourself up and read a book. There's actually a sufficient space for me to turn over to sleep. The berth is 80 centimeters wide and 2 meters long. That's completely okay for a bunk bed. The headroom and sitting on the lower bunk bed is considerably more comfortable. There's also a reading lamp here and a window, and I can also look out into the nature if I want to, but I have to open the flap from the outside.
Even if the pragmatic box is perhaps not suitable for arousing high emotions, it has accomplished one thing. With a residual load of 355 kilograms with a full diesel and water tank, the Safari wins one of the top placings in the 3.5-tonne class. But now it's high time to see how the Sprinter handles off-road with a cabin that's 3 metres 15 centimetres high.
One more round with the older model Sprinter. This still is the NCV3. In the future it will be available with a new series with the other cockpit and the other front.
The turbo diesel delivers 163 HP, which is fine. As already mentioned, the powerful 190 HP top engine is also available, which would be recommendable in difficult terrain. But this would really restrict the payload. Here the owner would have to decide between more power and more luggage. On the positive side, you can see that the cabin doesn't obstruct the view.
Even if this is the older Sprinter, well, older in quotation marks, the dimensions of the new and old are very comparable. With an interior measurement of 2 meters and 2 meters, 9 centimeters on the outside, the exterior of the vehicle is approximately 5 centimeters wider. I still have a good overview to the rear even with the standard mirrors. Paired with the optional gear reduction and the 6-gear transmission, I can move across the terrain pretty well. The gradability of the van is really adequate too. One positive point is that in spite of the height of the cabin, it is comfortable to drive and doesn't feel especially top-heavy, although actually there's not a lot in it except air. I'd be very interested to see how I went driving through narrow tunnels in the Alps, but in the countryside it's not as ungainly as you would perhaps imagine by looking at the proportions from the outside.
Aber so im Gelände ist es nicht besonders störend, was man erstmal denken könnte, wenn man von draußen die Proportionen sieht.
The HRZ isn't actually excessively noisy while driving. Well, actually.
Because the driver's cabin is shut off at the back with the door, the noise level is actually fine. Except if I go over 60 kilometers an hour, then I hear the MT tires very clearly, and those who drive longer routes often and isn't off-road so much should definitely change the MT tires to normal ones. It's quieter and more comfortable to drive.
Es ist leiser und angenehmer zu fahren.
It's only in more difficult terrain do the MTs show what they can do. The Sprinter ploughs on and over where those less sturdy may have already given up.
The Sprinter is actually a box van and therefore not an off-road vehicle, and it therefore has a problem with its suspension travel. The design means that it doesn't have any, and it therefore requires a driving style to accommodate it. You can see it here. This is the electronic differential lock. It needs some time until it starts to work, but you can get over larger obstacles by adapting your driving style.
Conclusion. The Safari is a useful addition to the HRZ model range. The interior layout is really generous, but 15 centimetres less height would also not hurt the vehicle. A little less air upwards would be a good fit. With a good payload reserve, HRZ has surpassed itself and raised the bar in the class. The basic price with all-wheel drive around €135,000. If you're interested in the 3.5 tonne category, you should really have a look around. We've tested lots more vehicles for Class B driver licence holders in our YouTube channel.